everyone. Hello, everybody. So, I got a number of topics to discuss with us today. Hi, Angelica. I want to give everybody a moment to be able to hop on here. I know I kind of like let this be known sort of last minute. Buenas, Carlos. Hi, Sandra. So, I hope everyone's doing well. There's been a lot going on in the voodoo world this week. Good morning, Chris. And some things that people have repeatedly asked me to address and speak on. And so I'm just going to give everyone a few minutes here to be able to log on. Hey, Mambo J. Bonsoir, David. Bonsoir, Lisa. So, yeah, there's quite a few things been going on. Hi, Lavetta. Hi, Javier. And I wanted to address those things. So before we get into all the topics, I want to just like throw out some information. Thank you, Mambo J. Throw out some information for everybody, so on and so forth, that I wanted to discuss. So, first and foremost, if you haven't already checked it out, I just recently put out a podcast about Kouzen, and I wanted to talk a little bit about Kouzen and about Kouzen this week, just because, like, this is a special year for him, as well as he's a really good Loi to have on your side. I usually put this also on my YouTube. So we're planning for a Kouzen and Legba ceremony on June 8th. Yeah, it's June 8th. June 8th at 3 p.m. Just, I'm going to put more information out about that. But Kouzen and Legba, June 8th, 3 p.m. It was kind of like, I know it's not as much notice as I usually give for everybody. It's a little bit shorter notice, but that's how the Ministerio de Loi showed me like they want that situation. So Kouzen is a really important loi, and if you're a spiritual worker, he's a good loi to have on your side, as well as if you're a business owner. So I'm gonna get into that topic a little bit today. I'm also gonna get into kind of like the hot topic of the voodoo world this week, which is like initiation into Haitian vodou, initiation, Kanzo specifically, and then something that's been going on with an individual who has kind of like, I guess, stirred the pot would be the best word, and talk about that situation going on with him. So I want to cover all those topics. I want to give each a little bit of a moment. So let's start with Kouzen, because I rather always be educating, helping you grow on your path. That's the point of me doing the lives, and that's more important than anything else. Before I go into Kouzen, just because I mentioned that fact right there, is never allow yourself to become overly distracted by gossip, drama, nonsense that's going on anywhere, because that's basically what it is. And it's meant to get you distracted and driven off your own path and doing what you need to do in order to continue your spiritual path, your growth, so that you can live a happy, full life. That's like really important for you to know. Okay? So, with Kouzen, if you're a servant of the Loi or of the Misterios and you have Kouzen with you, May is the month of Kouzen. A lot of people feast him on the 15th that recently passed. And he's a really important Lwa because he's the Lwa of the earth. He's a farmer. He's the spirit of agriculture. He's the spirit of bounty that comes forward from the earth. And so, if you're a spiritual worker or a business owner, he's also very important for you in your profession. And he's a Lwa that, because he oversees the area of work, he's very, very helpful in being able to get people work really, really quickly. And I have a bunch of stories about various works and things that I've done with Kouzen that have really, were quite miraculous. Okay? One story that I have about Kouzen is that Kouzen, because he's of the earth and he is all about the growth of things, the bounty, he also works with the herbs and he's a healer. And so one time someone came in with a really bad illness that they had been struggling with since, I don't remember the year they came in, but I knew it was like over 10 years they had been struggling with that illness that had totally debilitated them. And they'd been all over to doctors, unable to be fixed, so to speak, be healed. And they had gone to the UK, they had gone into Europe, they had gone pretty much all over America, Canada, trying to get, whether it was a regular doctor or a naturopath, to get them resolved. And nothing was working. And so we decided to call the Lwa for this person. And I was calling one Lwa, but the Lwa who decided to show up for her was Kouzen. And Kouzen went ahead, and this was just like so miraculous to me once I heard the story, is that basically he was like, look, you need to go to Haiti to get treated. But right now, you're too bad in a shape to be even able to get on the plane to go get treated. So I'm going to cure you. I'm going to cure you for 6 months so that you can get better, so that you're able to get on the plane, so that you can get treated. And I'm going to do that right now. And basically, he bopped her on the head, and not like he beat her up, but he like bopped her on the head and said what he had to say. She couldn't believe it. When she had took the initial car ride down to see me, she had to stop about like 10 times. It was a 2 hour ride in order to get to see me because of the sickness. And she couldn't be in cars like that. She couldn't believe it that she got all the way home without ever having to stop. Then, after that, she was cured. And she was cured actually for longer than 6 months. It was like 9 months. But she was afraid of going to Haiti. So she came back, and Kouzen was like, okay, basically, I'm going to give you an extension. He bopped her again, and he said what he said, and he did what he did. And when he said what he said, he did what he did, it gave her that extension of time until finally we were able to go ahead and take her to Haiti. We took her to Haiti, and when we were in Haiti, again, Kouzen came, and he decided what leaves and what we had to do to pick, and the ceremony that we needed to do for her when we were there. And that treatment took 9 days. After the end of that treatment, however, we little by little got her eating again and eating all sort of different foods that she was having allergic reactions to and all kinds of stuff, slowly incorporating things back into her diet. And up until this day, she's a happy, healthy person once again. And it was all through the work of Kouzen. So Kouzen's really in a very amazing Lwa. And I've seen Kouzen, just he's one of these Lwa that when I lived in Haiti, I would say he was the one of the Lwa that I saw pop up just randomly most frequently. What I mean that is, there was a point in time when I was living in Haiti where we were out in the country, And in that sector, it was like mainly all voodooists, and they had various voodoo temples that were around. On various occasions, we would be sitting in the yard, and a Kouzen will come in and come through and come to greet people that were at the house who were in the Laku, come to give messages. And it would be a Kouzen from a Hungan or Mambo or another servant of the Loi, another initiate or another Sevite of the Loi who maybe lived in the area. And that Kouzen, after doing whatever they did over at the house where they originated at, would just come walking down the street and with his like person running after him to make sure he had what he needed. And he would come down the street, and I've seen him do sitting in various yards, various lacus. I had seen him pop up and like give people messages or do a treatment on them or blow smoke on them, somehow help them, heal them, and bless them. So that is, Kuzan is a very faithful Loi, a Loi that loves to help his people, and he's a beautiful Loi. So I just want to check the comments here. Hi, Lynette. Bonsoir, Jessica. Yes, Elisa. Love and respect, Star. Hi, Etna. Hi, Tiger. Okay. Hi, Leilani. Yeah, we're going to address the Mario thing. Alaso. Hi, Tasha. Hi, Goddess Mother. Good to see you. Hey, Lewis. So we're gonna end up. Someone asked about the Mario thing about being out of the loop. That's the tea, and we're gonna get to that tea in a little bit. Like I said in the beginning, I rather neutrify you guys and give you guys things that is gonna help you progress and advance, and then we can get to the tea. Cause I'm not concerned with them as much as I'm concerned with y'all. So hey, Day Day. Hi, Will. Good to see you here. Hi, Chaz. So, with Kouzen, if you can, and that's a loi that walks with you and he's important to you, is a loi that you serve. You can, if you can, you want to get yourself a jakut and you want to have that jakut there for him. It's very important. If you have a hungan or a mambo that you know that you're working with, they can prepare this for you, and they can prepare it for you. Or if you're a hungan or mambo yourself, you can go to whoever your godparent is and ask them to teach you how to prepare that. Okay, because there are various preparations that can be done with the kuzenjaku to help bring work and business, and there's certain preparations that are done for it if you're a spiritual worker and you have that inside your altar to help you with your spiritual work. And it's a very I won't say essential but great point, punto, or tool to have there in your altar. And most priests and priestesses who work with misterios often do have that, or various ones of them for various purposes. Okay, sometimes when you go to a ceremony, the one that we use a lot of time for the ceremony is going to be a different one, because the other ones are working bags. They're out there, those bags are doing work. And so those bags are prepared according to how, secrets. I can't tell you how you prepare them, but those bags are prepared. If again, if you're a priest or priestess, this is something that you may look to whoever is your mentor, etc., to guide you, train you, and show you how to do that. Okay. So, hi Marie. So, hi Trudy. Much love, darling. Much love to all of y'all. Okay. Hi Jay. So, you want to have that bag for you and to prepare. Another thing is that Kouzen, he will smoke a cigar. So like if that's what you have on hand, or a lot of times it's easier if you're gonna smoke a cigar for the Loa. He smokes cigars, but you can also carry what he likes to actually smoke is his pipe. So this is like a clay pipe with a piece of wood that goes into it. That's the most common. But you can also give him a corncob pipe, right? He likes to have his pipe and his tobacco. If you already smoked from pipe, then maybe you'll go ahead and use that. Now, I find a cigar, like if you're gonna smoke for the Lua, then that's the most convenient, is to go ahead and use a cigar. It's just a lot easier. But if you enjoy smoking the pipe, you can smoke the pipe for him and give him that smoke. And when you're talking to him, you should be doing that. So now, we live in a modern day world where most people, like if you're renting and things like that, you can't smoke wherever you're at sometimes, right? So there's a few things that people often ask me about adjustments when it comes to smoke, right? And this is what I suggest to you. Number one, if you can smoke or you're not too concerned, right? Like basically cigar smoke, if you smoke a cigar and you open up your windows and everything, either during and after, generally cigar smoke isn't going to, unless you're doing it all the time, it's not going to stink up your house forever. It is going to dissipate. It may take a few days, but it's not quite like a cigarette. A cigarette's gonna the smell is gonna stick to your walls. People are gonna know, maybe even weeks after that you smoked in the building. Okay, so that's one thing. There's also lots of candles to deal with smoke, right? To help deal with when people smoke, that help to absorb shit like that. Put that in your altar. You can go ahead and put that in your altar. Absorb that smoke up. That's two. Number three is, let's say for whatever reason you just can't smoke. Okay, I would show you a hood hack, but like it's a hood hack. Okay, so where you can smoke inside, even where you're not supposed to. But we're not gonna get into that. Okay, because we hood. So instead, what you can do is you can go outside and smoke outside somewhere. If you don't have like an outside for you, go on your balcony. If you don't have that, go into the park, go into a patch of woods, go somewhere and smoke outside for the lot and do that piece of what you need to do. If you have to do something where you smoke or whatever, and you know it's a part of something, do what you have to do inside and then go outside and do your smoking if that's the case where you can't smoke inside. This is actually one of the things about why it's a problem and sometimes hard to find places to celebrate and do Loa ceremonies, because you when the Loa come in people's heads, you can't be over here like, oh, you can't smoke, you can't do this, you can't do that, because you're celebrating the Loa. The Loa come to do what they want to come to do. So this can make it a lot of like places that get rented out, halls, buildings, etc., etc. You can't smoke in them. Sometimes light candles, so on and so forth. So that's just something to take note. Okay, that's why like wherever I be, I have to be able to get away with doing some smoking for the spirits at minimum. Hi, Mambo Sandy. Yep, a lot of people like to smoke for their blois. Hi, Amor. Yeah, you can also do that. Something Trip mentioned is you can use loose tobacco, especially like if you don't smoke at all. Some people just can't. It makes them sick, actually. You can use loose tobacco on incense charcoal. If you don't know how to light incense charcoal, I think I put a video out not that long ago on YouTube. There's a video out on my TikTok. There's a video out basically how to light incense charcoal, and you can burn a little bit on incense charcoal. And if you mix that with other herbs and you don't do too much tobacco, it won't be like you smoke tobacco in the building. You feel me? Yeah, absolutely. So, light incense and then smoke. Yep. There's incenses that are also meant to remove that smoke or like lessen the smoke. Okay, so if you have Kouzen, like I was saying, that's something that you want to have for him. That's those are some basic, very basic tools that you can have in your altar that you could be having to work with him, and kind of like some knowledge that you want to have. Um, Kouzen is a loi that he's very easy to serve because he loves lots of food, and even if you don't know how to cook, you can give him raw fruits and vegetables, especially things that are from the lands, including your locality. So wherever what you get in your locality, that's also important to Kuzan because he's a spirit that's very connected with whatever land you're at. And giving this to him raw, especially tubers, things that grow as root vegetables, etc. And he loves coconuts, oranges, bananas, pretty much all types of fruits and vegetables. And you can give this to him raw on a mat on the ground. And for those of you who don't know, Kuzin's primary colors are blue, green, and a lot of times people give him another color. So blue, green, and red are the colors that we use here for Kuzin. Okay. Oh, somebody here makes tobacco incense. Yeah, that's another option is to use tobacco incense. Um, some tobacco incenses, just so that you know, like this person makes it here, but other ones sometimes that you buy on the market actually don't have any tobacco in them. So those are sometimes those products that get mass put out there. But what you have to know is that in those cases, the effort, the intention, the sacrifice is still taken into account. So that's that. So Guzen, like I said, putting out something for him, so on and so forth, it's always good. And like I also said, I'm planning June 8th to have Kuzen and Legba being celebrated at 3 p.m. More details are going to be out soon, real soon, right here, coming up. Okay, coming up. If if you're a person who, like I said, deals has Kuzan, it's important for you to feed that loi. Like I said to somebody earlier today, Kuzan's really been tilling the earth and kicking up some stones. So, no surprise though, because it's his year. So, there we go. So, that's A. Topic B that a lot of people heard about, people have asked me about. Someone here put a question on the group about is initiation, voodoo initiation, Kanzo, and currently in the voodoo world, there's someone that called Mario who has just put out that he's created an initiation and he's kind of um, mixing things together and it's created a huge stir. So to initiate in the voodoo, I want to like establish some points here before I get into that part of the topic. To initiate in voodoo, it's a process. And a lot of times you hear that and a lot of people tell you over and over, it's a process, it's a process, it's a process. It is a process. However, they don't tell you what that process is. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of a breakdown here just so that you can have a clear understanding of how that process goes and how gauge maybe you're undergoing that process with someone or for whatever reason. So I'm going to break that down for you. And I'm going to actually break it down into spots like way before initiation. Okay? So first, you have a spiritual calling. When that spiritual calling becomes active, you experience your spiritual gifts. You start to experience more wisdom, more knowledge of the spirit world, connection and activity from the spirit world, you start to interact with the spirit world. And at some point within that process, you come to the knowing, knowledge, or realization that the spirits that are coming to you and dealing with you are Loa Misterios, the mysteries. Okay? Mister, Loi, Misterios, these are all synonymous terms pretty much. Okay? The world of the invisibles. You realize that you're getting that calling. There is contact. You realize that certain things are in your life the way that they are because of this missing point or that need for that connection. Now, some people may already have been born with that connection where they are connected with the spirit world and there's interactivity of the spirit world with them. And that is very common, okay? And that's how it goes. So that's step A. You come to that realization that they're the mysteries. Then you, from that point, okay, there's various directions that people go and that people take depending on themselves, their experiences, so on and so on and so forth. And I'm just going to go through a few of them really quick. Okay. Oh, you're most welcome, Quinn Etoile. Okay. Yep. So once you've gotten to that stage, however you got there, some people are going to start like doing their best, doing their research, learning as much as they can, absorbing as much as they can from any resource that they can, including internet, books, so on and so forth. They're going to do that and they're probably going to start to do their best to attempt a service to the Loa, serve the Loa, etc. Good. That's one way of going about things. Now, don't let people bullshit you, okay? There's plenty of good and bad, but also good information on the internet, online, etc., about our practices. So don't let people bullshit you. A lot of people, including many people that are already initiated in a priesthood, that's their foundation of knowledge has come from that source and just mainly that source, and it's visible to those of us who have further knowledge. So people are always talking shit like, oh, you can't learn it from books, you can't learn it from the internet, etc., etc. I agree, you can't. However, there is lots of shit that you can learn beforehand, and that you may need to adjust. It may not be the totality of things, but it can give you a bit of a foundation and idea, etc. So then from there, many people start, basically serving. Okay, they have more experiences with the Loi Misterios, the mysteries. They have more experiences. Other people may choose to right off the bat look for a Hungan or Mambo, get a consultation, and begin the path that way. That's another option, right? Some people start on their own first and then eventually get there. Some people, never, never, they just stay on that level of service. Other people go and contact the Hungan or Mambo and like see how they can further their path. If they find the right fit, then that Hungar Mambo begins the training process with them. Okay? Hey, Moon. Begins the training process with them. Within that training process, that part is a process. And initially, the Hungar or Mambo is going to have a consultation with them, see that this person is meant to be serving the misterio, serving the loi, serving the miste, that this person is called by the world of the invisibles, the invisible, like they see that person has a loi, and then they start to train them in that, as well as do the foundational work with them so that if they are meant to get initiated, that's being started to be handled, A, and B, um, that person is moving towards that. If that person is not meant to be initiated, then they're giving them the foundational knowledge that they need to know in order to be an uninitiated servant who has what they need. And at that point, for the person who is not initiated, even though they're not initiated, that becomes their hungan or mambo that they go to for whatever it is that they need above and beyond their capacities. For the person being initiated or called to be initiated, and the calling does not just come by the loi, but it all by like a hungan or mambo telling you, but it comes by the loi. And then there's many ways that the loi can show you, indicate you, etc., to say, hey, it's time for you to be initiated. Okay? Okay. So, hi, Kim. Okay. So, from there, now you're undergoing the process to get you ready for initiation. Now, from there, most people, most people are going to undergo uh, first level initiation, depending on the house, what that may be. That might be Huns in Haitian voodoo. That may be like a Hunsi Semp or a Hunsi Kanzo. Okay? And that begins another stage in their growth. Okay? That becomes the initiation or the beginning step of the next level for them. From there, you would begin to get trained and learn what your responsibilities are on that level. Now, before I get there, I want to make a mention. Prior to getting there, there's plenty that you can learn. Naturally, there are secrets. But prior to getting there, there's plenty that you can learn. There's plenty of a foundation that can and should be set with you. Don't let people tell you that you can't learn anything at all whatsoever until you're initiated. Okay? That's like signing a contract but not knowing the terms, right? And not knowing anything about what you're getting yourself into. It doesn't make sense. So there's plenty of you can learn up until that point. Now, if you're called to get initiated, there's other things you're going to undergo in prep. And then from there, the law will say when it's time to do it. When it's time to do it, usually you're going to get Hunsi initiation in Haitian system. Okay? And that could be a Hunsi Semp or a Hunsi Kanzo, a person who received their Sevis Tet or their Lave Tet, however it is that they call it in that particular place. But those two things are pretty much the same. So that if they get the Sevis Tet, you're going to be a Hunsi Semp, and if you get Kanzo, you're going to become a Hunsi Kanzo. From there, you're going to learn everything that that means, everything that it is for you to do. Your learning of that position depends on not just the Hungan or Mambo, but it depends on you. Depends on you attending service. And you should have already attended services, at least a few, prior to being initiated at all. In that period of preparation, it's good to attend services. Okay, you might depending on where you live, how far you are from the house you're going to be connected to, etc., that may happen more or less often. It depends that. Okay, so then after that, but you're going to choose to learn continuing forward. It's up to not just the Hungan or Mambo and you, but it's up to you. I always tell all of my godchildren, like basically, you know, I you have to seek your wisdom, seek your connaissance. You have to seek it. Okay, I'm there's too many Hungans and Mambos. We can't keep up with. There's one of us. There's many of y'all. So basically, that's how it works. So, yep, that happens. With it, someone said a dream pushed me for a reading, and now this person is moving on the path. So that's how that goes. You're gonna start to learn that. Now, if you're meant to be a Hungan or Mambo, after learning that foundation as a Hunsi and things you need to know there, you're gonna start to learn other stuff that's going to start to prep you into going as a Hungan or Mambo. Now, one thing I want to mention is that sometimes in some places you might not get initiated first as a Hunsi. You might first get initiated as Supoin, a Hungan or Mambo Supoin. Either way, you usually are somewhere in there, and then eventually you're going to get train until you go where you need to go. Now, if you're called to be in Asogwe, a Hungan or Mambo Asogwe, you're going to get trained up to a certain point as an Asogwe naturally. You need to learn everything the Hunsi knows. You need to know everything the Supuen knows. Then you become Asogwe. Okay? Because when you become an Asogwe, it's kind of like this, and this is what I want to explain to people. Okay? So, yep, sometimes that happens. Étoile brille, Queen Étoile. Like, you might have interactions, experiences with your loi, but you don't know what that is until you know what it is. It's the best way to put it. Like you don't know what those spirits are, etc. And then later on in life, it becomes revealed. So when you become an asogwe, what I want you to think of it is like this. It's the equivalent of somebody becoming an 18-year-old adult. Everyone says you're an adult. Legally, you are an adult. But you know jack shit about adulting. You are not an adult. In the sense of just you turning 18 doesn't automatically shift your experience and perspective into one of a mature adult. Okay? Instead, it's more like the beginning of an adult life. But that doesn't mean that on the morning after your 18th birthday, you come to think and have the wisdom and knowledge of a 50-year-old man, of a 50-year-old adult. Okay? Hey, my belle. Many blessings. So, absolutely. So, when you get that asogwe, and this is the same thing, even if you're in any of these traditions, if you're in the 21 divisions, that's the same thing. When you get bautizo, okay, all that means is you're at the beginning of your adulthood. You just became an adult. You turn 19, you turn 18 with one day, your mind doesn't automatically become mature. You don't automatically know everything. You don't know everything that a 20-year-old, 25, 30, 45, 50-year-old adult is going to know. You don't have certain life experience. There's lots of knowledge you don't have because you never dealt with those things yet. You never dealt with having a full time job, adulting, paying all your bills, so on, and whatever the case may be that you didn't deal with yet. And becoming totally responsible and having to know all of these things that you had to know as an adult that you did not have to yet know because you were under somebody's wing. And this is a big part that a lot of people do not understand. Okay? By the time you become an asogwe, you should, somebody says you have to crawl before you can walk. Absolutely. But by the time you become an asogwe, I want to change it up a little bit. You should be walking by now, but you're not yet a track star, baby. You can't run yet. Okay? So at that point is when you start learning the asogwe. You start learning what that means, what that is, the knowledge that comes with all of that, which means to be an asogwe. And that's the beginning of that journey. And I'm not going to tell you no lie. And any Hungan or Mambo that tells you different is bullshitting you. Okay? Every Hungan and Mambo makes mistakes. Everyone. There is not a one who does not make a mistake. Do you know why? Because the Hungar Mambo is learning to be an adult. And any 18 to 25-year-old generally is going to make plenty of mistakes. Buenas, Ligia. Okay. They're also going through the process of their growth and development. And I'm also gonna say this. You have to take into consideration how many people in the world devote themselves to something bigger than themselves, which is the spirit. Misterio, mister, there's not a lot of people that actually do that. So they're doing something above and beyond what most people do. And because of that, they're going to trip and they're going to falter and they're going to make mistakes, but they're going to learn from those mistakes and they're not going to continue in those mistakes. It's natural because they're growing and they're growing as an adult. That is the way of that. Okay? Like someone says, we are not perfect. Mistakes help you grow. Okay? We're all human at the end of the day. Absolutely. Oh, you're most welcome. Okay? Yeah, initiations don't make you perfect. Bendiciones, Nissan. Okay? You're most welcome, you guys. So you're going to make mistakes, and that's natural. Okay? But the point is to learn from the mistakes. And there's a difference between a mistake that you totally know is wrong and you go into doing it purposefully, and a mistake that gets made. But even then, if you do it purposefully, it's still a mistake because you didn't know better to not do it purposefully. So that part. Now, yep, despite being told a child still touches the stove. In fact, this is what's going to happen. A lot of times when you're in that 18 to 21-year-old stage, 23-year-old stage, the whole world is telling you you're an adult now. And so you mistakenly believe yourself to be an adult. And so you won't listen to anyone else. And you will make more mistakes and not less mistakes. And you get in your mind, I'm an adult. I'm an adult. I know what I'm doing. Can't nobody tell me what to do. Okay? And some people, especially when they don't go through the proper process before initiation, have that situation happen to them worse than other people. Okay? But many people have that happen to them. And many of us, if we look back when upon us growing up, there are various things that we may have been told by our elders to avoid in order to avoid mistakes, and we still did the shit because we were convinced we were adults. Or we can look back now and say how I used to view things was totally wrong because I really didn't know the shit. I thought I knew the shit, but I don't know the shit. And so I fucked up. And maybe people were telling me, but I thought I knew it all. And so it goes. Everybody, I think, goes through a know it all stage. And there is definitely what I tell people is, especially after initiation and when people get initiated and have ceremonies done on their head, it, it's very common that most people then go through a know-it-all stage, and they get big-headed, and they think right away they had their ceremony, now they know it all, and they kind of like they have a very different approach to like they don't think they need to learn, so on and so forth. But the Misterio has a way of poking that balloon. The Loa have a way of poking that balloon and getting that gas out of your head. Okay? And showing you through life and through scenarios that you're not a know it all and you don't know as much as you think. And if you're actually connected with the Misterio, by and by you start to really, really understand and learn and know why it is they call that misterio or miste, why they call it a mystery. Because it keeps teaching you over and over that you might think you know all of it, or you might think you know, but you don't know. So when a person may undergo an initiation, that. Now, when someone goes through an initiation in the voodoo, part of the oaths is to respect voodoo. But also, when they become an asogwe, okay, they become a part of a special co-fraternity, brotherhood and sisterhood of all the priests who are asogwes who have received their ason through the hand of Papa Loco. Okay, this is one of the reasons. Okay, mistakes are part. I'm just gonna read through some of our comments here, right? Oh, you're most welcome. Yeah. So, absolutely. So, when you become Asogwe, you become a part of a special brotherhood and sisterhood that comes together from everybody who's undergone that process and who has given that by the hand of Papa Loco. And this is the reason why people often come to me on opinions I may have about other Hunganza Mambos. But you know what I have about me is that mainly I mind my business. I don't care what no one else is doing because I'm doing what I need to be doing and I'm doing it correctly, properly, and according to the letter. Because of that, I don't really involve myself in such things and I don't care. And as priests and priestesses, what we are told, but a lot of people don't take this in very deeply, is that voodoo has, there becomes a big problem. We start to destroy the foundation of voodoo when ungan rai ungan, okay? When priests talk shit about each other, cut each other down, stab each other in the back, so on and so on and so forth. We break the power. We break up the power, right? And we know that in unión está la fuerza, that there is force in unity. There's strength in numbers and strength together, which is why basically I don't form an opinion of a priest or priestess unless I've had direct experiences with that priest or priestess. And even then, I keep my shit to myself. At the end of the day, why? it's kind of like it just washes right through because it's none of my business, and I'm on my business, and I'm too busy in mine to be dealing in yours. Okay? So I know many things, and I just keep my mouth shut. I don't listen to what other people tell me about any other priest or priestess. Why? Because I belong to the fraternity of priests or priestesses. So when people clients come tell me things, people come say things, da, 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 if I was not there, I cannot say that such thing is true or not true. Okay? As far as like opinions, I don't like to spit opinions. I like to spit facts. And if what I'm talking about is not going to benefit anyone or help anyone in the long run, I keep my shit to myself. When other and I it just tells me how I'm going to move. If you're one of my godchildren and you watch, then like all good godchildren, you observe and learn. Because I observed and learned, and I saw my own godparents and how they moved. Okay, and one thing that I observed and learned was that no matter what, respect. No matter what. Okay, something I teach my godchildren, which I'm gonna tell you guys today, and maybe this will help you. Okay, is yep. Okay. Yep, everything. So yeah, so trip, like someone said, that's why there you have your hungan or mambo that you double check with, okay, before that's how you know you're not going crazy. You double check it with them. You're making sure that what you're doing is right. You making sure that what you're doing is not just coming out of you and your mind or like various things that come out of you that you may not have dealt with, and instead is actually coming through from the Loi. So basically, what I've always taught people is that no matter what, you always come in and leave with respect. That means you go to a ceremony, you see that what they're doing in that ceremony is not right. Maybe it is right, and maybe you just don't know that yet. Maybe it's right in that lineage, but maybe it looks questionable to you. You respect, you don't touch, you don't be rude, you don't form an opinion about it. You leave it alone. It becomes an experience. When I went to such ceremony, this is what happened there, this and this and that. That's what they do there. You know what you do at your house. If you don't know, you go to your priest or priestess and you go to your hungar mambo and you find out how you do things in your house, etc. Now, if your hungar mambo is like, yeah, that's wrong, etc., etc., like that's between you and them. But you respect, and even if you think what they are doing and it's 100% for 100% that what they're doing there is BS, it's not going to touch you if you entered and left with respect. That's one. Two, something that happens is at times people fake possessions, right? Whether you believe it or not, or whatever the case may be, you always show respect and you be respectful because there it could be that the loi is there and you just don't know that loi. You don't know the manifestation of that loi. You don't have enough development to connect with that loi, whatever the case may be. Okay? And if you're unsure of what you've been told, you go back to your loi, you go back to your altar, and you double check, and you double check with your godparent. You double check what was told to you. Okay? I've been to ceremonies where I'm like, and what the Lord is saying to me is like, actually, no, 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 and I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, and it wasn't accurate or correct or anything like that, and I suspected it wasn't what it said it was, and I've gone back home and I go and I double check with my spirit, I double check with my peoples, my elders, and it's like, no, that was a no. And I've gone other times where I'm like, I'm not so sure about that. I don't know if that lie is so or it's not so. Okay. And I've gone back to my altar and I've gotten, or my elders, and I've gotten told or signs or things or confirmations that what that law told me was so and that that was the law. And you're going to do that for some time until you get to a certain stage in development where etc. Okay? A lot of people out here they like to think that they have like some lie detector inbuilt inside of them, but they don't. Another thing I don't do is like people show me videos of ceremonies and this and that. I don't make judgments on none of those. Maybe it's not the way that I do things. Maybe there's a reason they do something. Maybe that reason I don't know. Maybe it's a part of their lineage. Maybe it's a part of this or that. If I see videos with somebody, with whatever the case may be, I'm not there, so I can't say. A video is a snapshot, and I can't say I don't know the context of that snapshot. I don't know what was going on prior. I don't know what's going on after. I don't know what's going on there, so on and so forth. So I don't believe. Okay, it's not that I don't believe that whatever was there was so, it's that I can't make a determination based on something I saw on a video. I can't make a full determination a lot of times in about ceremonies and just watching little snippets. So I don't know the whole background story. I don't know what was going on there. And through a video, you cannot detect whether there's a spirit there or not because how you detect a spirit is by the force and the energy, not by what the spirit sits there and do. Okay? Now, someone who knows that. Someone who doesn't know takes a judgment based on that. Okay? Okay? Someone who doesn't know doesn't understand like that you can't make a judgment based on that because you don't know what's going on the time. I'll give you an example. One time someone sent me a video and there was Ogu. And Ogu was smoking 2 cigarettes at a time. And there was people like, oh, that's not Ogu, that's not Ogu. It so happens I saw like a longer clip, and what I saw was that that was a gift that one of the participants gave him. Okay, and he took the gift and he used it because that's what was given to him. And I'm not gonna say whether that was that or it wasn't that or this or that because I wasn't there. So how could I say whether the fuerza, the misterio, was there or not? I have to be in the environment. Okay, so that hi Kamiko. So that's how being asogwe works, or being a priest or priestess. Like basically, we don't we're not supposed to be backstabbing, shit talking, etc., with each other, etc. But I'm hi G. But one thing I will say is, unfortunately, although that's what you're taught, it's not always what people do. Okay, because you know sometimes I say to people, and I'm not trying to be rude, but um, you know, sometimes I rather hang out with like Jesus did with whores, criminals, and thieves because at least they're straight up about being whores, criminals, and thieves. Whereas there's lots of people out here in this spiritual community that are portraying not being those things, but that's kind of what's actually going on. Just like they're just wearing a spiritual outfit. So basically, that part, right? So, oh yeah, that's another one. So if I've never, yeah, I want to mention that. Like, there's a this, there's a thing where people, there's some people who say like the Loa can't speak any other language than Creole. Well, there's Loa in the Dominican Republic, including Loa in the head of Haitian servants or Haitian Huanzamambos that speak Spanish. And there's people who are like, oh no, but it's not Creole, so it can't be. That's ridiculous, right? You're talking about spirits that control winds and storms and love lives and war and all that other stuff, but they can't manage English. They can't manage another language. It sounds ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous. But again, humans like to give their limitations over to spirits. And that's not the way things work. Okay? So now, I, like I said, unless I have a direct experience with the Hungan or Mambo or the person at hand, I don't really like to form or base an opinion, etc., etc. And whatever that does get formed becomes a like either I'm gonna mess with them or I'm not gonna mess with them. I'm gonna associate myself, deal with them, or I'm not gonna deal with them. So now, with having all said all of that, I want to get into one more fact before I go into the whole Mario thing. Okay. So, lineage. When you get initiated into anything, you become a part of a lineage. Like I always teach you guys, like I always tell you guys, these traditions are regional, meaning they switch from region to region, they shift from region to region. There are changes that happen. However, changes are not that huge. There are that, and they're also lineage based. And so that means that you get initiated into a lineage. The lineage and the region combined, right? The lineage has a relationship to its region. That's one. That lineage from that region has sets of regleman as to how things are done. However, there is a foundational regleman, right, that is across the board. Otherwise, we wouldn't all be related. When it comes to a ceremony such as Kanzo, that lineage is pretty much all around the board. There's a set way of doing things. It's actually a strict lineage and a lineage that has a strict set way of doing things. Okay? It is not something that has tons of space for shifts, changes, or creativity. Okay? Your lineages give you a protection, they give you a layer of protection, but they also tell you various ways in which that spirit is served. The way that is the right way for you to serve your spirit is the way of your lineage. That this is why sometimes you see people serve the spirits differently in different places. The same spirit, they serve it differently. but both are correct. Why? Because they're served in different lineages. And they're served in the reglement of that lineage. No matter what, however, if a Hunganar Mambo is able to see deeper, they will see that no matter what, the reglement itself has not been broken by the shifts or changes. Hmm. For example, I'm going to give you an example. There are some places that I know of that when you're going to make an offering, okay, uh, to Metre Zili Freda, Ezili Freda, everything has to be white. Everything has to be white. Not a drop of color anywhere. Everything has to be absolutely white. We all know Freda likes pink. However, no pink involved. Everything has to be straight white. Okay? And there's other places where that rule is not that strict, and they might actually use some of Freda's other colors. But that's according to that lineage. In both cases, neither has broken reglement. The foundational reglement has not been broken. There are different ways of different lineages to serve. And so, bonsoir hermano bobo. So, how you serve your spirit goes based on the lineage that you've been initiated into. And they show you how you serve your spirit. Your spirit may show you things that they want you to serve it, but those are the way that you serve your spirit in private. That's your secret. That's your personal thing between you and your spirit. It's not how you go out and serve the spirit. A lot of people have problems in these things because they go and they put out certain services out in public that are meant to be done in private, and then other people take videos or see this or see that, and then they're like, oh, that's not done right, or that's not done right, or that's not done right, because there is a way that that spirit, no matter what, is served in the public eye, in ceremonies, etc., where you're inviting others. And even if there are certain things you might do for the spirit in private because the spirit has asked you for that, that's in private with them for a purpose, right? And instead, the excuse that gets used is, well, everybody serves their spirit their own way. That's an excuse. The excuse that gets used is, well, the misterios ask what they want and da 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 da, and there's shifts and changes everywhere. Yes, there are differences in different places, but if you look past the clothing of the situation, the force is the same and it's the same. Okay? If it's not the same, then what happens is then we are not all part of the same thing. That's why there's a tradition. So we cannot be all part of the same thing if we haven't gone through the same thing. In Vodou, you cannot give what you have not received. What you have not received, you cannot give. That's a standard knowing. Like, it's basic knowledge. You cannot give what you have not received. Okay? So, because you cannot give what you have not received, if you are not initiated in something, you cannot initiate somebody else in that thing. Secondly, for example, someone who is, let's say, a supoint cannot turn around and make like a hunsi Kanzo. So you have to be at a certain level before you can make a certain level. Someone who just left medical school, okay, might not be able to turn around and become a medical school professor. They have to reach a certain level and then they can go ahead and teach people to be medical students. Okay? So if you were to go to medical school, you completed, now you're a doctor. After you become a doctor, you have to go through more stuff for you to become a professor of medicine so that you could teach other people to be doctors. You don't just leave medical school and now you're just a doctor and you automatically think you can teach doctors. That's not how that works. You have to be above a doctor in order to teach a doctor. You have to know more than the student, okay? And you got to have a broader knowledge base, okay? That's how that works. So here's the thing, okay? And I just want to get to, with the Mario situation, I'm just going to speak some facts. And I'm just going to check here because I like to speak on a factual basis. Okay? Okay. So I want to get the facts on the situation. I don't want to say nothing that wasn't said or none of that stuff. Okay. Um. So the Mario situation. A lot of people have been asking me, "Hey, can you speak about this? Speak about that? Blah blah blah." So basically, just to kind of like give catch you guys up for those of you who don't know. Like people are also saying to me like, "What's Mario? What's Mario? What's Mario?" Okay, so on that situation though, Papa's gonna grab a cigarette real quick because that's what I need to tell you about this because it's kind of, ooh. So give me a second. I'm gonna grab a cigarette because we need that. So if you've been with me through this live, thank you for spending this time. I know this one's a bit of an extra long one, but guess what? I already said to myself, right, I'm gonna pull a newscast on y'all, okay? And haha, right, a newscast on y'all. And I was gonna leave the juiciest part for last, just like they do on the news channel, because a lot of people, like my grandmother say, I don't like to gossip, but I sure do enjoy hearing it. So, okay. The Mario situation, for those of you who don't know, is there's this guy named Mario, and he said that basically he's going to come up with a hybrid initiation in which he's going to supposedly make Hungan and Mambo Asogwes in 4 days when it's a 2 week process. But like I just went through that whole process, it takes longer than that. He's going to give them everything they need to know in those 4 days. They'll be independent Hungans and Mambos Asogwe, so on and so forth. Okay? So I want to address some of the straight facts in the situation. There's been a lot of Hungans and Mambos that have done lives about this. It's nice to see the community get together. It's unfortunate that sometimes the only time the community gets together is when something like this occurs. However, hey, whatever it takes, the mysteries have a mysterious way of working. Okay? So I'm gonna get all of you guys kind of up to date on kind of how that go on all that. But prior to me getting on all that, I do want to say that I saw this coming quite some time ago. I saw it when he was offering Elekes for Loi, basically. And let me tell you, I'm just going to call it as I see it. When I see someone giving Elekes for Loi, I usually see that as the first step to something bigger that's eventually going to happen. That's also going to be some kind of like mixin moxin type of thing. And, you know, basically, yeah, he's so I already know like the path that we're headed on. I saw this being done. I don't know if it was like months ago, last year, whatever. But like I said, I minds my business, and we have to call a spade a spade. Okay, you know, people like the idea was that I can use their liquors to get consecrate them and give them for the loi because people use all types of jewelry for the loi, and that is true. But we also all know like certain pieces of jewelry are just like the ason and certain spiritual instruments indicate something and are meant to indicate something. So that's why most voodoo people are not, they'll charge, meaning they'll mount a spirit or a loi or something into a piece of jewelry, but not usually in a leke or something like that because we know what that represents. Okay. So, yeah, for me, that is a red flag right there. And that's one. Another red flag for me, as far as like someone being a hungan or a mambo or something, basically, I'm not gonna be over here playing with Play-Doh when I can cook real food. So what I mean by that, and I'm not trying to be rude or talk smack, but like Hungans and Mambos who know what they're doing, generally we're not, there's certain practices, certain new age practices we don't do because it's like, you know, you have a higher level tool and knowledge, and you have knowledge of things that really work. So there are certain new age practices that we don't engage in that for me, when one engages in many of those new age practices as a big part of one's work, and when I mean it's not all new age practices, because there's certain new age practices that either come from voodoo or cross with voodoo, etc. But there's certain ones that make make a fella say, but that's just me. Okay. So sounds like so that's one. Um, Another issue, an issue that a lot of priests and priestesses had was that not only did he create or say he's doing this hybrid initiation, he calls it a hybrid, which he's mixing elements of Kanzo along with elements of a cha cha lineage initiation and mixing them together. And creating this or whatever. Another issue that a lot of people had was that he is selling it on Etsy, and so it's up there in Etsy. And as far as that's concerned, to me, that's neither here nor there. Collect your money wherever you collect your money. I do have a problem with him selling it on Etsy only for one reason. Etsy takes too much of a fee if you're going to collect your money, especially like that. Don't use Etsy because they steal a lot of your money in a fee. So basically, you might as well use a better payment processor. Um, okay. You should use somebody who charges you less of a fee. Every Hungana Mambo, when they're doing initiations or something, they have to use some way to accept money. Some people accept money transfer, cash app, whatever. So that's no big deal. But my problem with with that is just like, why are you paying such a high fee? Okay, you know, don't pay Etsy a big old portion of your money. Like, go ahead, don't pay such a high fee. That's that's one sign right there. Okay, of, and I'm saying this kind of jokingly, of a lack of training because you don't want to waste your money in fees. Okay, 6.5 transaction fee. That's a lot. So why pay almost 7% in fees when you could just collect directly via PayPal or bank transfer, whatever you need to do in order to get what you need to get. That's my problem with the Etsy thing. Another another person was, other people are mad because they're like, he's like, hey, I only have five left, hurry up, I only have five left. Well, I don't see that as a big issue because the thing about it is, most of the time when people are doing initiations, there's limited space. So I understand that to a certain degree. I can kind of let you get that off. It's no big deal, etc. However, it does sound like we're at the market. Okay? So just for like, always keeping it in a learning way, okay? If you're going to be charging a lot of money for something, don't put it on Etsy because Etsy holds a high fee. And right there, like, I already feel like my morals have been violated. Like, for real. Like, you're paying these people that much money. So I feel violated. And right there, that shows me something. And it might sound petty to you. And it is a little petty. But, you know, it screams not trained or something of that nature. Simply because, like, you know, if you're from the islands, you know that you're trying to save every cent that you can save. If you don't have to pay fees. Okay? I remember I remember one time, right? I remember one time, um I was out with my godmother, and there was like two sets of crackers, and one cracker cost like 1 cent more than the other set of crackers. And she's like, crackers are crackers, buy the one that's 1 cent cheaper. So that's something Caribbean people do. So, you know, paying a 7% fee when you could be paying like 2, 3% or something less than that, you know, oh, mm, mm, okay. So here's where the here's what is being said. You're gonna get your initiation, you'll receive everything without ties to a house, withholding information, or being nickel and dimed for information. So here's where the problem with that lies is, if the person lacks ties to a house, lacks a lineage, how do they know what to do? You're going to be giving them all the information according to this that they need supposedly in 4 days, along with giving them the initiation. I'm not really sure how that's possible. I don't uh, like we all discussed, this is a lifetime of learning. You're going to need your hungan or mambo again. They're not going to be tied to a house, which means, basically you're saying you won't have any responsibilities over any of these people. Spiritually, you won't have any responsibilities, because part of one things that you're telling them is that they're going to have their own potet so they can remain independent as an asogwe. A potet is usually given to an asogwe once they've reached a certain point in their development. Up until then, your potet is often held by your initiator because that leaves you a certain level of protection, and also the protection of the fact that if your initiator does not teach you and does not help you progress in your path, if your initiator is not being how they should be with you, the law is going to handle that. So it kind of puts that responsibility on your initiator there. Okay, so but in 4 days they're going to have everything, etc. So that's one there. Another thing is, if it's a whole new thing, I wouldn't have a problem with this. If like he was like, I'm creating a whole new voodoo, we're gonna call it something else voodoo. What happens is you're trying to promote something as thing A. People think that that's what they're getting, but they're actually getting something else altogether. Now, in a way, if you were to go ahead and progress with this idea, um, you would be in essence starting your own thing, starting your own lineage, starting your own thing, and it wouldn't be Haitian voodoo. And so if you were actually a Hungan or Mambo, you've taken oaths to respect the voodoo. And so maybe you would call people who went through this ceremony with you something else. You would call it a whole different type of voodoo. And you wouldn't use Haitian voodoo, especially Asogwe, Kanzo based terminology. You wouldn't use any of that terminology. Okay? You can call it something else. Okay? You can call it something else. Like there's a lot of people out here that like, look, we have the 21 divisions, that's Dominican voodoo. But there's been other voodoos that have been created by other people, right? And like you have like something called like voodoo gnostics, right? And those people that whole thing was created by someone, and they created their own thing, and they changed and they used their own terminology for the things that they were doing. So that's one. There's another place that I know that practices American voodoo. Another person who created that, and they use their own terminology and they use their own things and they do things their own way. So it's, you know, it's that. Okay? So, okay, somebody says, would this type of initiation be respected by the spirits? I'm not going to speak on the spirits' behalf. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to say is, like, sometimes the spirits are still going to respect the people who go into this if they went in there innocently, not knowing, etc., based on their faith and their heart. But they're not going to be a hungar or mambo, and that's what this is portraying, is that they're going to be considered a hungar or mambo asogwe. Anywhere that an individual with this initiation goes is not going to be accepted by the other hungans and mambos asogwe who are there. They're not going to be accepted as an initiate or as an asogwe initiate. Also, um, let me get through this list before I say this next little thing I was going to say. So then he's also saying he's going to give you colliers. Collier is something that you get receive only during a Kanzo. That's when you receive that. The other lineages don't usually use collier. As far as I know, the lineage, other Kwakwa lineages who that I know of or that I've participated in, etc., do not use colliers. That's something specific to the Ason lineage. Okay, and then he says this is the best part. It's like he's going to give you a custom cha cha or a kwakwa with a bell, and this will be given as the ason from Papa Loco. It's not an ason; it's a cha cha with a bell. It's not an ason, and really, that just brings about another situation. But I'm not. I don't want to hold you guys here forever. I don't want to make this like a 4 hour live because there's just so many things in this package here. Okay, hold on. You know, been a little sickish, but Um, then there's like supposed lessons he's going to give you during that time, and then he's going to give you a luck bath before departure. You wouldn't give someone a luck bath after initiation. That basically that part. Okay, you don't give them a luck bath after initiation. You don't do nothing to them after initiation because they're initiated. That situation that you just put on there has to be has to settle in. Okay, now supposedly, okay, there's a lot that happened throughout this last week, and so I don't want to go into 110% of it, but yeah. Um, Yeah, there's people who have practice things. They call it New Orleans voodoo. That's something they Louisiana voodoo. These are other types of voodoo, and they were started at one time or another. And there's some of those like that I know of, like Louisiana voodoos that are like old, and there are some of those voodoos that people have changed and started on some other level, and they call it something else. So that's kind of like my whole thing is like um you if you want to make your own whole thing, make your own whole thing. Basically that, use different terminology, use different words, make it clear that it's something else that people are getting. When you are a Hungan or Mambo Asogwe, or if you're initiated in any line, don't let people bullshit you. If someone asks you who initiated you, what's your lineage, you do have to answer. There is a specific way that you're supposed to answer that question. People will be out here saying that they don't have to answer. Yes, they do. Even according to the reglement, they have to answer. And there's people out here who'll be like, I don't have to answer to no one, or this or this or that. It's basically all you're proving is that you don't know what you're doing, or that you weren't trained. Maybe you aren't even initiated. Now, one last thing, kind of like Mario goes on to talk about like a whole bunch of other people and this and this and that and all this other stuff. And so I want to just bring it back down to this basic situation, okay? Is that Mario himself is not a Hungana Sogwe. Mario himself is not Kanzo. Mario himself is not a Hungan. Basically that. So I know that whole story over there, okay? And um, basically that. If he were to be initiating people in a kwa line or a cha cha line, as it's called, they have their ceremonies and how those are done. That already has a tradition behind it. You would have just followed that tradition. Okay? You're calling this some type of hybrid. It's something that you've put together. You should just really use your own names, terminologies, and processes to do what you're going to do. Okay? There are people, someone says, what about initiations outside of Haiti or DR? I have gone to consoles that are done in Miami and New York. And what I will say is that I saw, as far as I saw, regular amount was followed, etc. It's etc. Um, Lots of people will. There's various people that have various levels of whether they agree to it or agree with it or not. Some people will say like it can't be done period point blank outside of Haiti or outside of DR. There's other people who say no. There's some people who don't consider Haitian initiations in DR valid, even though it's in the same island. There's plenty of people in DR doing consos, plenty of Hungans and Mambos, Haitian Hungans and Mambos that do Haitian consos in DR. And I think that little by little, that stance is shifting and changing, where more and more people are accepting that fact. Another fact of the thing is, like, for example, I have like 7 people that needed to go Kanzo. As we all know, as if you're keeping up with the Haitian situation, the situation in Haiti, Haiti is closed, you are not going to be able to get in. I think that over time, more people may shift their views, and I have seen things done according to Reglement in DR, and I have seen them done according to Reglement even here in the States. But again, there's some people who will not accept that. And then there's certain people who will accept that as long as you don't do asogwe in the States. And there's various reasons for that that various people hold. However, there's people who do asogwe here in the States as well. So as far as it being limited to the specific place, I'm not a big I am of a person that will accept you if you're properly trained and if you had the proper ceremony done according to reglement. Okay, so because I've seen things done improperly even in Haiti and DR. Okay, yeah, it's true that after console you do have to answer the question of somebody asking you who initiated you, like are you initiated, and there's a way that that has to be answered, and you have to answer that to anybody who asks, whether they're initiated or not. That whole nonsense that I've seen people say, like, I don't have to answer, that's bullshit. And it usually gives, like, you don't have the answer is actually the answer. So that's why you don't feel you have to answer, because if you were initiated, you would know that. Okay? Just like if this person was actually already a Hungana Sogwe, this wouldn't even be being done based on them going through their ceremonies. Part of the reason why so many people are upset, he claims it's over money or this or that. Part of the reason is because really there's a way that that gets done, and everybody who's gone through those ceremonies has made a huge sacrifice to go through the ceremony and do the ceremony. So it's kind of like a slap in the face and a slap in the face of the ancestors. Okay. Okay. And I'm not trying to talk smack, I always try to keep it clear. To go become a Hungar Mambo, okay? Um yeah, you can be sonded, but again, because this individual is not a Hungar Mambo and doesn't have that much experience, they don't know how to sonde. They don't know what they might not even know what that is. I'm not sure if they do. They don't, but they wouldn't even know how to respond. Okay. Yeah, it's hard to know who is what and who is who. Okay, this is part of the reason. First of all, like anyone who is a true Hungan or Mambo Asoge, basically you wouldn't do this. It wouldn't even be a question. Okay, lots of, like I said, is like I have lots of people who have needed Kanzo, and for the reason that I don't have the method right now because Haiti is closed, etc., to do it properly, we haven't done it. Okay. Um, and again, like I say, I don't want to speak mess, right? It takes time to reach the level, where you're supposed to be at, right? But basically, there's no way. Basically, this person did not. I know the history of this person, etc. You know, so basically that they themselves are not Kanzo, they themselves are not also with, so they can't give you that. Then the excuse is like I'm doing my own thing. It's a hybrid. I said it was different. If that's the case, you use your own terminologies, change your terms, use different terms, then you won't upset people. Go do your own thing. But really, like, basically that is that. Okay? Um there's just so much to say around the whole situation that it really just is a lot. But a lot of it shows a lack of knowledge and a lack of knowledge as to why we do what we do. Okay? And at one point, he was telling Haitian Hungans and Mambos who were um, standing against him and speaking against him, like, keep your own Haitian processes. Then I'm not doing a Kanzo. I'm doing this hybrid thing, etc., etc. I don't care what y'all are doing. I'm doing my own thing, but this is not really your own thing because it's like you're using misleading words, names, etc., etc. Um, then later on, he comes to say like it's actually a lave tete with additional Kanzo elements. You can, again, if you're not Kanzo, you can't give Kanzo. If you It takes more than one person or two people to give a Kanzo. It takes basically a team. It takes a lot of people to do a Kanzo. At minimum, it takes five to just get it started. But really, after that, you're gonna need more, like, at minimum, like 10 people, if not more. Depends on whoever. Then, you know, I happen to also know all these people that, he either is claiming in Haiti to have done this or that. And I know the backstory of it all. So that's basically what I got to say is, if you want to do a whole new thing, do a whole new thing. One thing, for example, he's like, well, don't Honsies receive colliers? Yes, Honsies, Kanzos receive colliers. People who are Sevis Tet do not receive colliers, even though they're called Hunsi or Hunsi Semp. They do not receive colliers. That's an example. And then it's also an example of another proof, like that you never received a Cha Cha lineage or a Kwa Kwa lineage initiation because you would already know that you do not receive, even though you become a Hunsi Semp, you don't receive colliers. Also, in that Kwa line of initiation, depending on the lineage of those, there's a few different ones. Um, they have a specific processes in which they make people Hungan and Mambo in that realm. So you would already have that knowledge as far as being able to do that. So, you know, it's a bit of a mess. I probably what he's been doing from what I can see or heard is like he's blocking everyone who's speaking against him or saying anything ill of him or deleting their comments, so on and so forth. So I might end up blocked next. I'm not really too concerned about it. The point is, this is where you always have to be really careful out in these spiritual streets as far as taking initiation, putting your head in someone's hands. because there's all kinds of things like that, and there's people out in these streets calling themselves hungans and mambos who are not hungans and mambos. There are people out in these streets who are hungans and mambos but don't have any knowledge or training. Now, part of it was that, he's going to help to fix where people aren't getting trained, et cetera, et cetera. This is just not the way to do it. And I can understand the desire to see certain issues in the community and want to attempt to fix them. But again, it also comes from a bit of swollen big headedness that can sometimes happen in these things, thinking that you're going to come into a tradition that's quite old and that you're going to come and revolutionize it and change it all. Now, I do want to say on the opposite hand, I am going to say this. On the opposite hand, just like I mentioned, especially with Haiti being closed, et cetera, I do expect more Hungans and Mambos. You know, likely at some point where more and more initiations in the U.S. as far as consoles, which are properly done, start to happen or be more and more accepted. With that being said, I wouldn't even be surprised if in a few years from now, some people follow suit with this person simply because, people will do it. But again, they wouldn't be accepted as Hungans or Mambos in a traditional Haitian vodou society. Basically, they're not going to be accepted anywhere outside of um, him himself. Okay? So they're not going to be considered anything in any other space. There's going to be a lot of knowledge and that's going to be missing. Okay? There's going to be a lot of secrets that are never going to be learned. Um, some people are like, I feel sorry for the people who are going to do this. Mm, I kind of like, I'm this way and that way about it because these days there's enough information out there that if you're going to take an initiation, there's enough information out there for you to research to see that what's being done in this situation is totally different than all the rest. It's really easy for you to see what is different than everything else. Okay, there's so much information. There are so many good hungans and mambos out here. People want to always speak about like bad hungans and mambos that don't do this or that. There's plenty of good hungans and mambos out here in these spiritual streets that do teach people, that help people, and that initiate people properly, and that do train people however it is that they train people, so on and so forth. So in a way, I kind of don't feel bad because there's so much information that you should be researching before you're going to take a big life step like this. It's no different. People research a car, a house, and many other things that they're going to buy. It's no different than any of that. Why wouldn't you research what you're about to get yourself involved in, especially it involves touching your head? So to some degree, people have to take responsibility, and there may be people who want to go this route and they do go that route and they're happy there and maybe it provides them some progress in some type of way or maybe it messes them up. Either way, even if it messes you up, there will be progress because after you get messed up you have no choice but to progress. So, and if it does you well, then great for you. Okay. Oh yeah, that's another thing. um Let me see all these comments, y'all. Yeah, Day Day said it best, right? This is some there. This is a place where there's some. It appears some mental illness. Yeah, instead of actually actually addressing things. You know, it's being deflected as all the other Hungans and Mambos are jealous and jealous this and this, right? Um, that's just a way of deflecting. I don't think that it's possible to Kanzo in Europe, Paris, or London. Um, I don't think that it's possible. It might be possible. I can't say 100%, but I don't really think it's possible to initiate in Europe, not Kanzo, just because of what's needed. Maybe you could get everything over there. I'm not sure. Yeah, this is a case of, yeah, and so really, yeah. So really, like, I do hope m- maybe, the various people get the help that they need. I hope that maybe he gets the help that he needs. It sounds like, he may need help help on the spiritual path, etc., etc. There's a proper way of doing things, and we have reglement for a reason. There's a reason that local Aizan, the ancestors, set things up the way that they do. It's not for one man to come and change everything. If you want to do your own thing, do your own thing. Call it your own thing. Use your own terminology. It avoids a lot of problems, a lot of issues, etc. And I do think like the whole thing like, oh, they're jealous, they're jealous, they're just a deflection. He's also stated that he's not going to do any lives or anything like that. He's been told not to do lives, otherwise people may attack him, etc. It's giving a touch of like things I already know, like entitlement, narcissism, etc., etc. It's giving a little weird, but that's just me. Again, watch the live, this live, other lives, information out there. You do whatever you want to do. I'm just speaking from somebody. I was Kanzo actually 21 years ago. I went through my first Kanzo 21 years ago, and then my second Kanzo was, where are we? 24, 19 years ago. So I don't know, take that for what it is. There's like background check, like I'm background check verifiable. So take that for what it is. A lot of other Hungans and Mambos who have spoken out are background check verifiable within their lineages, so on and so forth, can give you the proper responses and answers to things. So, I mean, take that for what it is, okay? So, and basically that. So, do like I said, some one of the main questions I kept getting, is it legit? Is it legit? Can this be done, etc.? Well, it can be done. However, no one's gonna consider you legit. If you undergo this process, no one's gonna you're not gonna be accepted as a Hungan or Mambo anywhere else but at his house or in his space. And basically that, and technically since you won't have spiritual ties to a house, you're not even tied, you won't have a tie to his house, which there is no house anyway. So basically that. Many blessings to all of you. I hope you guys enjoyed the live. Many blessings. Until next time, keep the faith. Thank you guys for joining me here. I know this live was extra long, but we got to talk about a lot of stuff, and I wanted to kind of use this to get a lot of teaching to happen during this time. Many blessings to you guys today and always. Until next time, keep the faith. Okay? Stay blessed.